Anybody, anywhere,
It's time to take command.
The Cardiac Commanders are the Clutch Commanders!
With former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen.
This pass caught by Paulsen, the tight end.
And from 106.7 The Fan, Grant Paulsen.
This is Take Command. You can watch us on the 106.7 The Fan and Team 980 YouTubes. You can listen to this podcast wherever you get your audio. Please subscribe, rate, review, and do that podcasty stuff. Also, spread the word, send links to buddies, let them know that we do this. We're growing this thing, and we're hoping it gets bigger and bigger as the season goes along, and hopefully Washington piles up wins and makes a playoff run. Logan Paulsen is the star of the program. He is back with me, decade-long NFL career, breaking down the tape. I'm Grant Paulsen. You can watch me or listen to me on 106.7 The Fan, 2 to 6:30 every day with Danny Rouillet. Logan, we are on to the Chicago Bears in town, the Commanders meeting with a team that's becoming a bit of a rival, whether it's because Chicago took Caleb Williams 1 and Jaden Daniels went 2 to Washington, or the interest and flirtation for the Commanders with Ben Johnson, who ended up keep leaving them high and dry as they were flying out to meet him at one point. Now he's the head coach of the Bears. It seems like these fan bases are constantly bickering on social media for a non-division rival. This is kind of fun every year at this point.
Yeah, and I think it's all the things you just mentioned. It's the Ben Johnson, it's the Dan Quinn, it's the coach here, coach there, but also I think it's the 1 and the 2. It was really interesting. I was talking to Fred Smoot. He reminded me of this. The Bears didn't interview Jaden Daniels at all. They knew Caleb Williams was their guy, which is a crazy move by them. You have the number 1 pick. You think you'd at least kick the tires on some of the other prospects, even like Drake May as an example. Why not talk to the guy to make sure that you have it locked in? So I do think that there is kind of all these storylines that have developed over the last probably 2 years, which are really fun and I think make the rivalry that much more dynamic. And then you talk about the game last year, which is fantastic and basically ended the previous coaching staffs in Chicago's tenure. That was the beginning of the end for them. And so there's all these cool little things that are kind of tied in that are going to connect these programs for the next couple of years.
Yeah, the Bears come into this game off of a bye. They are 2-2. They've actually won their last 2 games played. They pummeled the Cowboys 31-14, and then they won a game they just stole basically from the Raiders 25-24. Early season losses to Minnesota by a field goal, and they got eviscerated by the Detroit Lions. So because of that, the point differential isn't impressive. But at 2-2, they get Washington out of the bye with some extra rest, and then Monday Night Football gives you the extra day as well. So the way these preview shows go, we pick one side of the ball to start with, and then we do another one next segment. So let's go Bears offense, Washington defense first. I think the Bears offense is the bigger story for them because Caleb Williams is playing against Jaden Daniels, as you referenced, because Ben Johnson's one of the great play designers and callers in the league. Offensively for the Bears, they're 20th in yards per play. They are 26th running the football at 3.79 per pop, and they are 13th passing the football at about 6.8 yards per play. They do hit some explosives and schemed up stuff in the middle of the field especially, but they are good in play action. They can throw the football and make some plays. That's going to be something they'll look to take advantage of, I'd imagine. But, man, they can't run the ball at all right now, Logan.
Yeah, they're really struggling, and I think when you look at the offensive line for them, it kind of makes sense. They've got a bunch of people. They've invested a little bit of money there, obviously, with Joe Thuney they brought in from Kansas City. But I do think when you look at Braxton Jones, their left tackle, he's a guy that I think is a pretty good pass protector, but really struggles in the run game. It's usually the other way around, and I was listening to a podcast recently. They were talking about the Bears offense. They were like, it's very rare you'd see an offensive lineman be benched for deficiencies in the run game. And I think right now Braxton Jones feels like it might be heading in that direction, even though the pass protection numbers are pretty good. He just is it's non-tenable for him in the run game. Their center, Drew Dahlman, the big free agent acquisition from Atlanta, is doing a pretty good job, but their right guard struggling. And then Darnell Wright, the first round pick from a couple of years ago, is playing better and he shows flashes, but I think he's somewhat inconsistent. And I think that word inconsistent is something that really characterizes the offense as a whole, right? I think right now they're a little bit outgunned in terms of wanting to run the football. I think you say, oh, Ben Johnson's going to run the football. He did a great job in Detroit. When you look at that Detroit group, man, they're it's a different animal in terms of the personnel, the approach, the mindset, and he's still trying to build that here. And I think it shows up with some of their rushing inefficiencies, right? You just get guys that are outmatched at the point of attack. All these runs that they ran so effectively in Detroit don't have the same transfer because you don't have the same personnel. And I think that was the thing in Detroit that kept that offense crazy efficient and offloaded some of the responsibility from Jared Goff. And that's one of the reasons Jared Goff becomes, maybe a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And now all of a sudden you have to, here in Chicago, you have to give a little bit more responsibility to the quarterback. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about Caleb specifically, but he is to me, a very inconsistent player. He's got all the potential in the world, but very inconsistent. So I think the lack of the rushing efficiency, again, they find explosive plays in the running game, but they're not very good at it down to down, leads to this ripple effect throughout the offense that makes them less efficient down to down because of the guy that's calling the signals for him.
One of the things I find interesting is that they've done a pretty good job avoiding sacks this year compared to last year. And sometimes that's a quarterback-dependent stat, too. Middle of the pack, about 14th in sacks per pass attempt offensively, about 5.2% of the time. But that's with Caleb Williams still holding the ball the longest of any quarterback in the league. On 130 dropbacks, he holds the ball 2.98 seconds time to throw. Brock Purdy, 2.89. Justin Fields, 2.87. Some of that is a moving pocket and getting him on the move. That can extend time to throw occasionally. But this is really a Caleb Williams stat. This has been a bugaboo for him. He is a ball-holding, sack-taking quarterback. If you can keep the ball in his hands, and you could tell me how to scheme that up to have that happen, take away some of the easy throws quickly and make him kind of reset and flush the pocket, that's an area where you can hit him, and that's where he really struggles. When he has these games where he's getting sacked 4, 5, 6 times, it feels like he just becomes a different, more timid quarterback in the pocket.
No, I think that's 100% right. And I think, it's interesting, the 2.9 seconds holding the football, it's a good thing and a bad thing for him. And I think the good element is that, like, you get these second reaction throws, like versus, I want to say it was Dallas, right? They're in the red zone. It's 4th and 4. They get a little bit of pressure off the right side. He steps up. He runs to his right. The linebacker steps up, and he's able to kind of make this really tough, contorting, odd arm angle throw back over the middle of the field to Rome Odunze for a touchdown. And so when he's running around, there is the element of like the second reaction. There's the scrambler, there's the playmaker that you saw at USC. However, I do think that one of the things that comes to the forefront with him is I think Ben Johnson's done a really good job of kind of finding explosive pass plays, finding explosive pass plays, but also just finding easy buttons in general. Like, here's an easy throw, here's an easy read, here's a nice play action shot down the field. The thing that sticks out to me, Grant, is when they don't have that, he's not super comfortable just like reading it out. And you can see that in terms of ball time to throw, right? So it's like you want to kind of be in this sweet spot. You don't want him holding the ball for 4 seconds because he knows how to run around and kind of break coverages. You don't want him to kind of get the ball out of his hand super quick. But when he's in that kind of no man's land where it's like, hey, I got to kind of go from 1 to 2 to 3, it gets a little bit dicey. His mechanics with his feet get a little bit weird, and he'll throw some of the worst misses I've seen NFL quarterbacks throw in a long time. Like, his down to down, I'd say, is definitely trending in the right direction. But like Grant, like, he gets out there, he tries to accelerate his feet, and he'll one hop a dig to a receiver over the middle of the field. And I can't think of a guy that I've seen do that with any level of, like, he had a flat route that he was throwing in the Detroit game where it's Las Vegas game. He accelerates his feet. He turns to throw the flat and one hops it to the back. And so there is this element,
right? I mean, that's got to be easy.
And so you're kind of like, what's going on? And again, the footwork, all that stuff. But I do think when he's got to read it out, got to digest it, you take away the first one, he's got to go to 2. The footwork doesn't always match up. Now, in the same breath, Grant, he's got some of the best throws you've seen all year, just kind of weird arm angles, body contorting, ball pushing down the field. So there's this weird dichotomy where it's like the bad is really bad, the good is really good. And I think the thing that comes to the forefront is the middle then is not great, and I think that's where you want him living as much as possible in this land where he's got to kind of make these decisions, get a little bit of pressure on him. And I think that's one of the reasons why the offense feels so clunky. Like, you watch the Las Vegas game, you watch the Dallas game, they come out with their first 15, Grant, and you're like, this is the best offense I've ever seen. right?
Yeah.
It's just dialed up, great play design. And then you get in like normal game flow, and it's like, why is this so clunky? They're not running the football super well, and the quarterback is not down to down consistent in the same way like Jaden Daniels is. You watch Jaden in the LA game, like when the offense is rolling, he's taking check downs, he's working through progressions, he's being comfortable being boring. And I do think Caleb Williams has a very hard time with that. So back to your sack number, right? It's like you kind of want to make him feel uncomfortable, but I think the coverage contour is going to be more important this game than it's been the past couple of weeks.
Just as some juxtaposition, Caleb a year ago as a rookie to this year with some of the growth you talked about, 11% increase in his passing yards per game, which is, not one of the more telling statistics, but touchdown interception ratio last year, 20-6, it's 8-2 right now. Sacks per game is where he's made the biggest strides, 4 per game last year, 1.75 this year, so 56% decrease. EPA per play was negative 0.14. Right now it's like negative 0.03. So that's pretty significant improvement. Yards per attempt, 6.3 to 7.1. It's a 12% improvement. This offense is better. He's being coached better. Ben Johnson's legit. And the weapons around him, which last year we thought, we're going to really put him in a good place, didn't to the extent that we anticipated. But in the passing game, Roma Dunze is a really good player. He's become kind of the guy, especially in the red zone for them. DJ Moore is a war daddy still on third down and can move the chains. Olamide Zaccheaus, who people know here, who broke out after a 10-catch season 2 years ago in Philly, became a really important player for Washington last year. He is a safety valve and plays in the slot and helps them too. So while DeAndre Swift isn't doing much in the run game, and we just talked about how they can't run the ball that much at all, Dunze, Moore, Zaccheaus, Cole Kmet in the passing game. They've got a rookie they're still trying to get going in Luther Burden, a second-round pick. They do have talent and some skill, and it's why when they spread you out and get to that first 15 script and hit on some things, they can make some plays. There's athletes on this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I just want to make it clear, like they're having a hard time with the down-to-down consistency running the football, but they do find, I think they're like number 4 in explosive run rate. And, like they're bad and they're basically like a lot of neutral runs, but they do kind of have these runs that pop where they find explosive opportunities. I think they're top 5 according to PFF, and explosive run for PFF is a run over 10 yards. So just give that some context. It's not like they're cranking off 20 or 30 yard runs. But yeah, they are talented, man. They're talented in the back end or with the playmakers in this offense. I think that you mentioned Paulsen Love and you mentioned Luther Burden. Those guys haven't really gotten going. Luther Burden had the big game against, I forget who it was. Was it Dallas? Like where they hit the flea flicker, they hit a nice high cross over the middle of the field, and he's really productive and you see his explosive playmaking ability. But the guy that's really, to me, driven the offense for them is Roma Dunze in year 2, kind of coming into his own, looking like, quite honestly, the best of that top receiver group. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not playing that hot. Malik Neighbors is injured. Brian Thomas Jr. has kind of regressed into Jacksonville, and Roma Dunze is just surging forward in terms of his production. And it's a little different in terms of kind of what you'd expect from a true number 1. It's a lot of digs, a lot of in cuts, a lot of stuff where he's wide open on a rail route versus the Dallas Cowboys. You know what I mean? The production's not like one stud stuff all the time, but I do think you're starting to see shades of that. So to me, that's the guy you got to kind of take care of and manage his production, because the other guys haven't really lit it up the same way. The other guy, the number 2 guy, in my opinion, is Zaccheaus. Been very productive after the catch, third down, done a great job. But it's been a little surprising to me to kind of keep an eye on this offense and the stuff that I've watched, see DJ Moore be relatively quiet. And I'm not saying he's not going to have a big game against Washington, because he can. He's explosive. He's dynamic. But I do think the lack of route running nuance has hurt him in this offense where, Coach Ben Johnson's really like it's a West Coast system, basically. You know what I'm saying? It's like you got to be at this spot at this time. And DJ Moore hasn't really brought that the same way that Roma Dunze has, where he's kind of got this professional route running savvy to him, lets him be in the right spot at the right time. So in terms of playmakers, it's Roma Dunze, Olamide Zaccheaus that I think you really got to manage. Colson Loveland's not gotten going really. Cole Kmet has scored a couple touchdowns, but again, has been a little inconsistent catching the football. So to me, while they have the names and they have the athletic talent, it maybe goes back to the quarterback for me, and that his inconsistency has led to inconsistency from that group. And it's this weird, like they can't really get going, even though they can hurt you, and they have hurt people this year. They haven't really figured it out yet. So I think the big question becomes for Washington is how do you keep that inconsistency rolling this Monday night?
Yeah, so my prescription defensively, and then I want you to kind of agree or disagree with whatever you think. I think first things first, you're going to give some things up in the passing game. Like you're playing a Ben Johnson offense who can get receivers open, and they got good weapons. I need to make sure they don't run the ball effectively. Like I'm going to basically make them one-dimensional essentially by saying Javon Kinlaw, Johnny Newton, Daron Payne. Like let's continue to make them a bottom 6 rushing team in the league. They'll hit on 2 or 3 runs of 10 or 11 to your point, but I need them to be averaging like 3.2 yards per carry at the end of this thing, not gashing me. Because if they're setting up play action and they're running the football better than they have this season, now it's a big problem. And I think even with the ability to make the plays down the field, we've seen it in games this season. That's fine because they're going to commit a penalty. They're going to get behind the chains. They're going to turn the ball over. You're going to sack Caleb Williams on a 2nd and 9 and make it a 3rd and 16, and now they're off the field on a couple of drives. Like I will live with that. And I think that they'll get their yards and they might get their points, but there's no reason. And we'll talk about Washington's offense next segment, but you're going to be able to score on this team too. Like this feels like a shootout to me. This is as bad a defense as you're going to play. So I'm banking on you're going to score 30 plus. If you allow, low to mid 20s in this game, I still think you can win this football game, but I just can't have them be able to get both. Like I'm turning off the valve on the run game, and I'm trying to get a takeaway or two and get to a handful of sacks to kill some drives. That's kind of my philosophy.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that because again, like when you look at the Detroit offense, just as like kind of the high definition version of the Bears offense, they're at their best when they run the football. However, I just want to call attention and bring attention to the fan base in that the one thing Ben Johnson does a good job of, he's going to scheme up an explosive play. And so I think that's the other thing is like in those moments, like when you're at the 40-yard line, when you're at the 50-yard line, it's a first down, it's a 2nd and short. Like my antennas have to be up because they're going to run a flea flicker. They're going to run that play where they act like the ball's on the ground, and they're going to pick it up. They're going to try and create this consternation in the middle level of the defense to run up, fit runs, create nice big throwing windows for Caleb Williams, and then take an explosive shot. Like when you look at the games that they've won, they are a team that the lifeblood is explosive plays. And so what I mean by that is defensively, they create a lot of explosive plays, turnovers, negative plays, things like that. And then offensively, they create these explosive shots down the field. So if you can kind of put a cap on that, while being aggressive to stop the run, I think that has to be the solution. So I think if you take the model that Joe Witt brought last week, where it's like, hey, we're going to have a really good pressure plan. We're going to be good on first down. We're going to do a little bit of line movement stunts, put those guys in conflict, get ourselves into this kind of, longer down in distance where those shot plays aren't as effective. And then we're going to play a little bit more zone than we've thrown the last couple of weeks. I think you're going to put yourself in a really good shot to be successful here because you're going to manage the run game, but you're also going to be aware of these explosive opportunities. Because if you can limit that number to 1 or 2 as opposed to 5 or 6, I think you kind of are siphoning off all the productive elements of the Bears offense moving into Monday night.
A couple of notes on Washington's defensive personnel. Dorrance Armstrong coming off 2 sacks, has 5 sacks through 5 games. He has 8.5 sacks in his last 8 games played. If you go back to the playoffs, he's also right now tied last year's tackles for loss and sack totals that he had all season in 16 games with Washington. Crazy. He's playing very well. Second level, we saw more Jordan McGee bringing his speed. He doesn't do everything correctly just yet, but he does it at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It reminds me of like a coach in high school being like, hey, like shoot your shot, man. Like go play football and just do it fast and we'll clean the rest up. But he plays very, very fast. I'll be curious to see what kind of usage there is for him in this game. And then on the back end, I think to double down on what we're talking about with some of the explosives and some of the trick plays and the things Ben Johnson's going to pull out, this is a real big test. This is about like having your eyes in the right place and not taking the cheese and playing sound football. I mean, you could say that every single week, but I think with a guy like Ben Johnson, there's nobody that runs more trick plays. There's nobody who, frankly, goes outside the box more to try to like make you, to take the bait a little bit. So this is going to be a telling game, I think, for the secondary and just communication and coaching and being on your P's and Q's.
And just to follow up on that, I think the messaging from last week from Joe Witt Jr. is the same thing we're talking about this week is no capes. Let's play assignment sound football. Let's let the turnovers come to us. I think in the review, I don't know if we talked about this, but like one of the things that happened in the LA game is that they found 2 turnovers, but they weren't pressing for them, right? Like interception comes on a tips and overthrow. The forced fumble is just a good form tackle with your hat on the football. Like we're not pressing for interceptions the way we were against Atlanta, where we're kind of trying to take our shots. We're trying to pick stuff off. We're trying to be overly aggressive. We're trying to force the turnovers. Here, I think it's the same thing. It's like be patient. Be patient. Play assignment sound football. And again, that's the theme every week, but it's especially true this week because of Ben Johnson, but also because of Caleb Williams and his style of play, right? He's going to be, you want him, to me, it's like you want him frustrated. You want him kind of patting the football. You want him to, because he is this kind of thing, which I like about him, that he wants to make the explosive play down the field. He wants to make the perfect play, wants to make the home run. And that can be good. But it also can be bad because it leads to sacks. It leads to him holding the football. It leads to him forcing throws. And if you get that, again, we talked about not putting the cape on, not playing outside the defense. That's when we're going to have the opportunity for interceptions. And again, really tip that turnover margin in our favor.
Well, you want him off schedule more than anything, I think, too. I mean, when he is, in structure, I should say you want him in structure is what I mean to say.
Yeah,
almost.
I think that's the best way to put it.
Like when he is off schedule and kind of running around making plays, he might take a sack or turn the ball over. But that's where a lot of the crazy throws you're talking about seem to come from, like his off-platform stuff.
That's what I'm saying. It's like you want him at the ends of the spectrum. You don't want him at the ends of the spectrum. You don't want him holding the ball for a long time, running around because he ends up making big opportunities. You want him in structure in like that 5-step. It's 2nd and 10. It's 3rd and 7. Can you read this thing out? Can you dissect this defense? Because that's when he starts patting the football and he takes sacks that he shouldn't take, or he accelerates his feet when he's going from 1 to 2. His platform's not good. It's you don't want him at the far end and you don't want him at the very beginning where it's like, hey, we're on schedule from an offensive play calling standpoint. Here's the play action shot. Here's the boot. Here's the easy kind of button stuff that Ben Johnson does such a great job of. It's like we want him to kind of have to really like sink in, play quarterback in the NFL. Because so far, while he's doing much better with it, he's not playing at a level that I want defensively, which is I'm going to make mistakes and not do it at a high level.
The Commanders shut the run down at a top 10 rate right now, and they're up to 6th in sacks per pass attempt at this point. All right, let's look at the Washington offense against a really, really bad Chicago defense so far this season. We'll do that next on Take Command. Welcome back, Take Command with Logan Paulsen. I'm Grant Paulsen. We're looking ahead to Monday Night Football against the Chicago Bears. They are coming to Landover, Maryland to take on the Commanders at Northwest Stadium. A rematch at the same site of last year's thrilling Commanders victory on a Hail Mary. And just for good measure, Logan, Washington, I don't think accidentally, the only time this season they'll wear those black uniforms they were wearing during that game last year against the Bears on Monday night at home. Just a bit of a wardrobe troll job, I think, by the Commanders.
Yeah, there's nothing like just bringing up bad memories on a Monday night game for the Chicago Bears. You know what I mean? So, it's going to be. I like those jerseys a lot. So hopefully they can get some of that. For a while every game they played them. When Ron was here, they'd lose that game. But it seems like they're getting some of that bad juju off, which is great. So
here's the good news for the Washington offense: is there are opportunities against this Bears defense for explosives. Right, they're going to give you some chances, especially in the passing game, to make some plays. But they have done a really, really bad job against the run. So here are some of the numbers. They give up 6.7 yards per play. That is dead last in football.
6.7, you said? Wow.
Yes, 6.7 yards per play, which is far and away the worst in football. They're dead last against the run. Per attempt, Logan, what do you think would be like a bad per attempt rushing rate in the NFL right now?
Per attempt? Like, what does that even mean, per attempt? Like
how many yards per carry?
Bad one?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like that I'm still shook by that 6.7 yards. I'm still shook by that number.
Yeah. If you're giving up over 5 yards per carry, you're a bad run defense, right?
You're terrible. Right.
They give up 6.1 per.
Stop it. Are you serious?
Yes. Dead last in the NFL also. And they are 28th in, that's a big improvement, right? They're 28th in passing yards per play, only giving up about 7.5 yards per pass attempt so far this season. So this defense has been really, really bad. Now, here's the good news for them. while they don't get to the quarterback or they don't get sacks, they're 27th out of 32 teams, they will pick you off. They lead the NFL in interceptions and interception rate. So they'll turn you over if you give them an opportunity to. Look at the balls on their hands on the ball. But I guess let's just start there. When you watch them, it sounds like you're surprised that they were that bad. Do you not see that?
No, you definitely see them struggle defensively, but that's a terrible number. Like, and again, there's a little bit of context to that. Like, there's that Ashton Genty game where he has, he had to get 140 yards rushing, 135, whatever it was, and he had a couple big runs in there. So that's gonna.
Yeah, they only played 4 because of the bye, so the sample's a little bit smaller. But still, I said this with Bill. Like, when you're averaging 6 yards a pop through a month in this league. I know it's a small sample. That's absurd.
Yeah, and so this is also absurd. It's like Bill's numbers are absurd. Yeah. This is also absurd. And they had, they played the Dallas Cowboys, who have been surprisingly efficient running the football this year. Dude, I will say Detroit absolutely got after them. Just took them behind the woodshed and just punched them in the face until they were unconscious. So there are some data points in that small sample size that maybe inform that number a little bit, but to your point,
those data points happened because they couldn't do anything about it. Like, it's not like another defense was playing that day. It was.
That's a good point. That's a good point. But so what I will say is they play a ton of man on early downs, which is a little bit surprising. Like, I always think early downs, most teams are kind of in some type of zone, some type of match, a little bit more conservative because you have the play action, because you have runs, you have all these different things that kind of can mess with your eyes. And then on third down, you play a little bit more man coverage, traditionally is what I would think. They flipped the script. They play a lot of man on first down. They're really aggressive with that kind of coverage philosophy. They don't blitz a lot. They'll bring a little bit of pressure on first and second down. And then when you get to third down, they don't really pressure a lot there. So they're kind of like, we trust our front four to kind of help stop the run, get after the quarterback. I will say they're very, very talented at the linebacker level. They got TJ Edwards, who they played a lot of money to. I think he's hurt, or he was hurt. So Noah Sewell's been playing quite a bit. Tremaine Edmonds, I know he's kind of had an up and down career, but man, that dude can run. He can cover. He does a lot for them in terms of kind of making plays. And their Sam linebackers, Ruben Hippolyte. And all three of those guys are playing good football. They're football over. They're running and hitting, tackling well. I think the group that's struggling the most, at least to my eye, is the defensive line. They're having a really tough go. Nobody really is playing above a 50% grade on PFF except for Montez Sweat, who is playing really well, but in a very Montez Sweat way. I'm setting good edges in the run game. I'm creating kind of slow pressures in the pass game, not a lot of sack production. But I do look at that group, and it's really like Montez Sweat and friends. Linebackers are good. Secondary is solid. But I do think their just general defensive philosophy leads to a lot of the production that you're seeing. Because, you're playing man on first down all the time. And that's just really hard to do. We've seen, I think, go back just as an example or a case study, the Commanders game versus the Green Bay Packers, how playing man all the time, especially on run downs, can be really challenging for defenders in terms of eye discipline. And you see a lot of that with them. There's a play that comes to mind where they're running what I would call a taxi, a pin pull, where the receiver blocks the defensive end, the tackle pulls around, and they're on the edge with the fullback leading the way too. And the man defender on the receiver in both games versus Detroit and versus Dallas runs inside with the crack block, gets out leveraged, and then they get a big explosive play to the perimeter. And they almost don't even have to block the guy because he's in man coverage. It just shows you how on early downs that's really challenging. And I do think their front four has some good run-stopping elements to it, but it's hard to stop it if you're not dominant with your front four. And I don't think they have a dominant front four with the style of defense that they want to play.
So to your point on blitz rate, from what I found here, 33%, which is 23rd of 32 teams. League average is about 40%, so they're below that this year. They blitzed on 41 of 123 defensive dropbacks faced, essentially. Only 9 teams blitz less frequently than the Bears. The Packers are the least blitz-heavy team in the NFL right now at 23%. So just as a data point, that's what you've got for the numbers there. I was just reading a story this morning about their defense. There is some hope that they could get as many as 4 starters back for this game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, I don't think it's going to be all 4, and I'd have to go look at the names here, but they're expecting at least a couple players back. So they have been injured. Maybe that helps against the run. Maybe that helps overall. I'm sure it will. But you know this like I do. It's not like as soon as guys come back, you drop them back in and everything's fixed. Like there's normally a ramping up period as well. But, we talk about it's not who you play, it's when you play them. I think the Chargers game when you got them was really ideal compared to having played them, say, in week 1. This might be the inverse of that some, where, maybe they got another week to prepare. Teams off a bye week or better. They are getting a little bit healthier on defense. So, on a scale, maybe this is a week where the Bears are a little better than what the mean of what they've been. That said, I still think this is a game Washington should absolutely win at home. But they are getting healthier on defense. We just don't have an injury report yet because of the nature of the game on Monday night. When we're recording this on Wednesday, there just hasn't been one dropped yet.
No, absolutely. And I do think this is one of those games where it's obviously the Washington Commanders are very good at running the football. The Bears are very bad at it. And this is one where I wonder coming out of the bye if they've done a little bit of self-scouting and they say, hey, man, we can get into some different fronts. We can bring some more early down pressure, more run stunts, which, again, would kind of be problematic for Washington. One of the things that Cliff does such a good job is he uses personnel, he uses formation to dictate good running, to create good angles in the run game. And now all of a sudden you've given the Bears a couple weeks off. They could say, hey, man, why are we in all this 4-down structure? Let's get into more bear. Let's cover up those guys in the interior. Let's eat these double teams up. Let's let our linebackers be the best players on the field for us, which they up until this point have been. So that's one thing that I kind of wonder coming out of the bye if they do a little bit of reevaluation in terms of front structure specifically to kind of put themselves in better spots. But I think all that being said about the run game, I think the one thing about this defense that keeps them in games, and you mentioned it, is the turnover stuff. They do a great job turning the football over, forced fumbles, interceptions, and some of them are lucky. They play Geno Smith, who's just giving out the football like it's like Halloween, and he's giving out candy from his house, which is not great. But in terms of statistics, man, they've made a bunch of really good plays on the football. And like I said, offensively, they try to ride this explosive wave. Defensively, they are more boom or bust than any defense that I've watched in a long time. So you have to be aware of that. You have to be aware of that mentality when you're calling plays. And I think Jaden Daniels is always very fastidious with the football, but he's got to protect it. Because if you give him 1 or 2 on a short field like Las Vegas did, Las Vegas should have won that game, quite honestly. They were running the football. They were getting after him. But they had 3 turnovers, Las Vegas did offensively, in short field situations that led directly to points. And I just look at that and I say, you have to avoid whatever that moxie, whatever that confidence is, because schematically, to me, they're not doing anything that's leading to turnovers. It's you get guys just making plays on the football. And I think that's one where it's you have to avoid that at all costs in this game. Because like you said, this is one where they should, on paper, be able to physically impose their will. Jaden Daniels should be able to do Jaden Daniels. If you're going to play man and rush 4 against Jaden Daniels, you're out of your freaking mind. That's the craziest thing ever. But that's what they've done. But if they're going to play that way, the only way they win is if they get the ball out, which they've done every single week they've played.
Kyler Gordon, the corner, TJ Edwards, who you referenced, the linebacker, and Grady Jarrett, the D tackle. 3 of the injuries that right now look like guys could be trending in the right direction. Gordon, hamstring. Edwards, hamstring. Grady Jarrett's been dealing with a knee. Missed the Raiders game in week 4 as well. So that's worth monitoring the injury report as we go here. We're looking at the Commanders' offense against the Bears' bottom-ranked defense. I love the matchup for a couple of the reasons that you just mentioned in terms of scheme, but also just, how porous they are on the back end. We'll get into some of the guys that might eat for this Washington offense in a moment. But I want to talk injuries for Washington. It sounded like at the beginning of the week, Dan Quinn was very optimistic about the possibility of Terry McLaurin being back for this game and Noah Brown. Now, we'll see. I mean, there could be setbacks. He wasn't definitive, but he made it sound like there's a really good chance that they get both of those guys back. If that were to happen, Logan, I mean, they've already been cooking offensively. They're a top 10 unit in the league. Now you get your playmaker McLaurin back, who's basically made one big play this season through 5 weeks. And you get Noah Brown back, who's so valuable for them, not only as a big body in the run game, but also doing some stuff on digs and in-breakers, boxing people out. We haven't seen this offense at full strength, and we haven't seen those receivers out there. Luke's played a lot now, and Jalen Lane's played a lot now, and those guys are better and get pushed back down the depth chart. They're running the ball better than they have over the last couple of years, and really in several years. Maybe going back to the Shanahan 2012 season. I don't know that I've seen this dominant of a run game from Washington. So you add all that together with a MVP caliber player at quarterback is what we think Jaden Daniels is. I mean, what could this offense look like moving forward?
I mean, it could be pretty dangerous. I think, obviously the number one kind of playmaker in the offense has been Deebo Samuel, and he's been, kind of moving around the offensive formation. And I think getting Terry back, getting Noah Brown back, I think probably most importantly allows you to maximize him more, right? Allows you to kind of say, this is the route tree we want him running. This is where we want him running these routes. And it allows you to also maximize Terry, like put him in positions where, hey, like I can run that post that Luke ran against the Chargers, but maybe because I'm Terry McLaurin and I run a 4-3 as opposed to a 4-4, and I've got these great down the field ball skills, I create a little separation and we're off running from a backed up situation. And I just think, again, like his superpower is kind of those explosive plays over the top, the contested catch slant, like just raising the floor of the offense in a way, just from his consistency. Like there was a couple of plays where I think Jalen Lane's done a great job over the last couple of weeks, but Jalen Lane is a young route runner, and there's times where I'm like, that's not how I don't think you should run that route. That's not where you should be positioning. That's not how you should be coming back to the quarterback. And when Terry comes back and Noah Brown comes back, the one thing that they do bring those guys is they do that stuff at an extremely high level. And I also think Deebo, while I think has been fantastic, like he's not this guy you want him playing on the perimeter all the time. And now you can kind of get him back in a role where he's doing stuff in the slot at a higher level and kind of doing some of the gadget trickeration stuff that makes him so dangerous. So I do think it's a really exciting proposition to think about what this could be with a little bit more vertical juice at the outside receiver spots and what that's going to do in the run game, in terms of creating space and allowing Cliff to kind of call the best version of this offense.
Why are they running the ball so well right now? How much of that do you put on running back play with a guy like Bill, who I think is their most dangerous running back with the ball in his hands, maybe since Clinton Portis in his young days here? And how much of it is actually what they're doing with Cliff's play sheet and their offensive front blocking? Because, I mean, right now they're number one in the NFL running the football, and it's not like there's been a huge Jaden element of that. Now, look, 3 games in, when he's standing there, I don't care if he's running or not, he makes you better. I mean, as a rushing offense, he's going to give you 30, 40 yards a game. You're also accounting for him with a defender on some of the read option stuff. But I guess my point is there were plenty of times last year where like Jaden runs for 60, 70 yards. And you have, the Ravens are always number 1. And if you take Lamar out, they're number 13. This is also like when they run the ball with backs, they're dominating. They're gashing teams. 5.88 per pop right now. Bill's averaging 6.5. Why are they so good at it?
I mean, there's a myriad of reasons. One, I think the offensive line is playing really, really, really well in terms of kind of working combinations, being physical. I also think the opponents they've played have kind of lend themselves to this a little bit. Like the Chargers play a bunch of light boxes in terms of run structure. You get good angles just naturally because they have less people in the box. Atlanta kind of does something similar. So I think the style of opponent is part of it. The Giants also kind of, and Shane Bowen, a little bit known for playing light box structures. So that's part of it. But I also think Cliff does a really good job of kind of saying, like, we're getting in this personnel, like just as a really good example, like the counter that they ran, that Bill ran for like 15 yards, and like Ben Sinnott murdered the safety on the second, the load block by the tight end. Like you get into 12 personnel, right, with Ben Sinnott and John Bates. They feel like they need to match in base defensive structure. So what they do is they kind of say, we're going to play a 4-eye, we're going to play a nose, we're going to play a 4-eye, we're going to play a defensive on the other side in our 4-down personnel. Derwin James is going to be the Sam linebacker to the right side, right? So they're in a structure that you've dictated in this odd structure that's really, really good to run counter against, right? The personnel you are in, which is 12 personnel, dictates that they're in nickel. So 2 wins for Cliff right there. So we've created good lines and we've created good matchups just based on making good personnel decisions. Formationally, how we line up in terms of the wings off the ball, the tight ends on the ball, allow us to hit sync really good combinations. Then you get John Bates, Josh Connerly absolutely killing some guy, Chris Paul, who's been excellent in the run game, kicking out Derwin James, and then Ben Sinnott leading up on a safety who's fitting the run from 12 yards away. So all of those factors, I think, contribute. And then obviously Bill's a very naturally gifted guy, right? But you've put all those guys in good positions to be successful, right? Formationally, personnel-wise, you've dictated to them, and then you give the talented runner a lot of space to make a play. And so I think when I see what Cliff has done with the pen, he's put the guys in good positions to be successful. Cliff or Coach Johnson, whoever is kind of responsible for cultivating that, I think they have enough diversity in the run game in terms of we run a lot of counter, run a lot of GT, but we also added a little bit of trap influence trap, added a little bounce, kind of like 2 blockers to the perimeter. That's the touchdown that Bill Krosky-Merritt scores. And it affects the fit rules for the defense because it kind of looks and feels like counter at the beginning, but actually it's bounce. They fit the running correctly and it get touchdowns. So I think it's a combination and a myriad of things. I think guys are playing well. I think the plays are well designed. I think the diversity of the play call also speaks to that. So I really think Cliff's in his bag at the moment, which is really exciting.
Logan Paulsen, Grant Paulsen on Take Command. I want to talk Zach Ertz coming off of a catchless game with you here in a moment. We'll do that next, and we'll hit some burning questions before we get out on Take Command. Welcome back to Take Command with Logan Paulsen. I'm Grant Paulsen. The pick segment that we do each week is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. The pick I like in the NFL this week, Logan, I like the Bills. They're minus 4.5. Monday Night Football taking on the Atlanta Falcons in a Monday night doubleheader. I like Buffalo to cover that number, 4.5 points. I think they win by a touchdown against Atlanta. Remember, they're coming off of a bad loss to New England, a little extra time to prepare for that one. I think it's a game where there's going to be urgency and they can't afford to lose 2 straight. I just also think they match up well with Atlanta. I think Josh Allen makes a couple plays. I think they get to Michael Penix as well and pressure him. So I like them to cover 4.5 points this week.
I think so too. I mean, I think maybe that's my Josh Allen, rose-colored glasses. I just think that dude's an absolute stud, man. So whenever I see that coming off a bad loss, the way that team offensively has been playing, like the way they're coached, if they are the team we think they are, I think they come out and absolutely roll Atlanta, quite honestly.
That is our pick segment on Take Command, presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. All right, Logan, I want to ask you about Zach Ertz. He did not catch a ball this past week. He's got, over the last 2 games now, very quiet, just 2 catches for 21 yards. Going back to the Atlanta performance. Now, I remember there was one particular player where he ran a great route and Mariota sailed him on the sideline. Could have been a 3rd catch for another 10 yards. In this game, specifically remember a target where Jaden completely misses him middle of the field, like shoots a ball too hot and high, or else he has a catch for 12 yards. But he has not been nearly as involved as he was in the second half of last year. Maybe this is a Debo thing. They are running the ball more effectively. So I'm not necessarily even saying it's a big problem for the offense. But are you seeing anything there? There's always this conversation about the age of a player like Zach Ertz. I mean, is he still, when you watch him, is he have that same twitch and the same explosiveness and the same everything as a route runner as last year?
Yeah, I think so. I think when you look at this last game, I think that's a credit to Derwin James more than anything, man. That dude's an absolute stud. Like his ability to cover slot receivers and cover Zach. Like Zach's really skilled, really savvy, really nuanced, but Zach wins. Like if you go back to the Green Bay game, he wins with a certain amount of physicality and size advantage, in addition to his route stems and kind of like the vet, old man YMCA basketball stuff. But Derwin James was like, cool. Like I'm big and strong and I'm really fast and like you might get open, but it's going to be late in the down. And I think to me, it's a testament to maybe one of the better coverage safeties in the NFL in Derwin James, as opposed to a criticism of Zach. So I think Zach's in a good spot. I think there's going to be games where he's really productive like he was last year. And I do think the other thing that's not showing up in those statistics is all the pass interference calls that he's drawn over the first couple weeks of the season. So I think Zach's fine. I think he's still going to be a feature of the offense. I'm glad you brought up the Debo thing. One of the things I have noticed is they are using Debo in terms of route allocation based on concept. Debo's getting more of the Zach Ertz kind of route tree, which makes sense because he's an explosive playmaker. So I think that's probably, cannibalizing some of the touches for Zach there. But I'm not worried about Zach at all. I think he looks great. Had a couple nice blocks in this game, which is awesome for him against LA. So I think, there's going to be games where he's going to be hyper productive and be the guy that he was or he can be versus man coverage when the matchup dictates.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, last year at this time, I don't think he had a touchdown. He's already got 2. His catches are only off by a couple. His yards are off by a handful. So it's very comparable to how the first month or so of last year when he caught fire as the season went on. I just think the way they use Debo might mean that there's a little bit of a lower ceiling on some of his productivity, but that's not a bad thing in the 10,000-foot view of the offense at all either. Just wanted to see what you're seeing out of him. All right, then let's talk this matchup in general. I mean, I feel very confident going into this game. I just think Washington's going to be able to run the ball whenever they want to, as much as they want to. And I feel like if that's the case with this offense, then they can have a time of possession advantage and they can go get points. I mean, it's not that hard in this league anymore when you start at the 30, and for them, they often start at the 40 or 45 because they get a huge kick return every single week to kick some field goals and to get some points. And again, I think 30 is a number I think they're targeting and should get to. I would not be surprised if they scored 35 or 36 points in this game. I think they win a high-scoring game. The Bears may score mid-20s, but I think it's like a 34-24 game. How do you feel when you look at this matchup overall for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think if this team, the Commanders, can get some type of positive game flow where they're up by a score, up by 10 points, I think the defense is going to absolutely eat up this offensive line and eat up Caleb Williams. But I will say they've done a really good job up until this point outside the Detroit game, the Bears have, of avoiding that, right? Because I think, like you said, Ben Johnson does a really good job offensively. I think defensively they're opportunistic. So to me, and this is one of those things, man, Tana always brings this up, and I think this is really a good thing to remember. Is that as a professional football team over there, they're hyper aware of their strengths and weaknesses. They're hyper aware of our strengths and weaknesses, the Commanders. They are going to do things to offset those strengths and weaknesses as much as possible, right? So like I said, maybe they come out, they're in a different front, they do different spacing, they kind of bring more rundown, first down pressure. We talked about how their blitz rate was really low. Maybe they come out of this bye week and say, man, why don't we pressure more? We're having a hard time getting home with 4. So I think that's the kind of joker on the table here for me is, yes, this is what they were in the first 4 games, but teams are always evolving and they always evolve coming out of a bye. So like, what are they? And does that take away some of what makes Washington good? Do they really come in and say, man, we got to stop the run more efficiently? And are they able to do that? And so does that shift kind of the focus? Does it put more pressure on Jaden Daniels and Cliff Kingsbury in the pass game? Maybe. I think they're more than ready for that kind of challenge, but that's where it's like, as analysts, when you say, oh yeah, like they should be able to run the football. Yeah, like we should based on the team that was, but they know that too. And they're going to do things to augment that. So I think that's what I always coming out of buys, especially I'm thinking about in terms of what are they going to change and what's the new version of the Bears coming into this Monday night game.
So for my who eats on offense, I'm going Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. I think Bill goes for a $125. Back-to-back 100-yard games. I think they feed him like they did a week ago against the Chargers, and he finds it even more favorable. It might not hit as many big plays early. I mean, his running log in that game was like 27, 15, 14, 13, 9. But I think they'll wear them down. They'll certainly hit a home run at some point for 20 or 30 yards, and they will run the football pretty effectively. And if they don't, that means the Bears are committing all their resources to that, and then someone else is going to get fat on the back end in the passing game. But I think Krosky-Merritt has a big day. Who's your guy on offense?
To me, it's Deebo Samuel. I think he's just become a feature of the offense. I think they're really understanding how to use him. He finds explosive plays seemingly every single week, whether it's in the return game or on offense. And I think him and Jaden just seem to have a really good connection and rapport, and Jaden really trusts him. And I think when you see that level of trust starting to form with a young quarterback and a veteran receiver, that's always a good sign for continued production for that player.
Defensively,
to me, it's like there's one name that comes to the forefront, and I was like, I'll pick someone different this week. I don't know. Javon Kinlaw, man. That dude every single week just seems to bring kind of a certain physical dominance to the position that I haven't watched in a while. And I do feel like last week, kind of, I don't want to say unlocked the keys to Kinlaw because I think he's played well so far, but last week he just flashed in a way that I haven't seen a defensive tackle flash here in a long time. And that's like, if they can get him moving on line stunts, on run blitzes, things like that, like he's damn near unblockable. So if I'm Joe Wood Jr., even though they kind of run a little bit more outside zone here, those run blitzes are way more effective for gap scheme runs. I'm trying to just see if I can keep that moving for him, where he's attacking a gap, he's moving, he's using his length, using his athleticism to penetrate and be disruptive in the backfield. Because if we can get that going, man, I just don't know how you contend with that level of physicality on first and second down if you're the Chicago Bears.
I got a hunch play here. I got Trey Amos getting his first NFL interception.
I don't hate that.
Yeah. I got Amos with a pick, get his hands on a couple footballs, maybe PBU or two, and an interception in this game. I think Caleb's going to, occasionally give you chances to make some plays defensively as well. Well, enjoy this one. Under the lights, everybody. Should be fun. Primetime, Monday Night Football. Get there early and tailgate. Of course, we'll have a breakdown after the game for you on Take Command. that we will be providing deep into the evening on Monday night. So you'll want to listen to that. And then Logan's film review will be in your feeds by Tuesday. We give you 3 episodes a week. Check Logan out here at Take Command, all of his endeavors over with the Commanders. You can listen to me on 106.7 The Fan from 2 to 6:30 every day. Thanks for enjoying Take Command. Spread the word and subscribe, rate, review, do all that podcasty stuff wherever you get your audio.